Bluebeam Studio, all that stuff from a professional. And then on Wednesday, we have Women Empowerment Wednesday. We have an awesome lineup of speakers who have lots of wisdom and stories to share with everyone, and they're there to answer all of your questions about the industry. And then we have another tech talk on Thursday about P6 and all of your scheduling questions. And then on Saturday, we have an in-person event with our keynote speaker, and we'll be announcing scholarships and company awards that we have going on right now.
In addition to that, one of our bronze sponsor, Radians, is going to give a PPE presentation to kick off our Wednesday event, as well as raffle off a women's safety vest. And then they also gave a jacket safety vest that we're going to be doing as a grand raffle. So if you attend any of the events throughout this week, we'll be doing a grand raffle and announcing that probably on Friday. If you want to attend any of the events and you haven't signed up for them, the signups will close an hour before each event each day. So we still have time to sign up.
Yeah, and we will have a raffle every day of the week. The first 4 days are online, and then the last day will be in person. It's going to be a brunch event at Newport Beach at the Pelican Courtyard. Okay, and now I'm going to hand the floor to Matt with Skanska to give his company presentation. Matt, I believe you wanted to share a presentation so we can give you the screen sharing.
Perfect. Are you able to see my screen all right?
Yep.
Nice. Well, thanks for giving us the opportunity to chat with you all a little bit about Skanska. My name is Matthew Caswell. I represent our National University Recruiting for Skanska, based out of Los Angeles, currently in Costa Mesa, so still in the Orange County area, and I will be there Saturday. Hopefully get to meet a few of you in person, but not gonna talk your ear off. We have an opportunity to speak, so I'm taking it. So I wanna basically give you a brief background about Skanska, and then just let you know about what we do in the construction management field here in Southern California and nationally as well. So in 1887 is when we started, long time ago in Stockholm, Sweden. We started off making little concrete angels that go on the side of churches. From there, we went to infrastructure, which a lot of the infrastructure still in Stockholm, Sweden today is still there that we had laid, years and years ago. Fast forward, we came to the United States in 1971, where we're at today, where we've set a goal of achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2045. About 7,500 workers. We have 29 offices across the U.S. And then basically some of our values there: care for life, act ethically, transparently, be better together, commit to customers. I think two of the values that I typically see pretty often is care for life and act ethically and transparently. Care for life, whether it's our safety culture or our sustainability culture at Skanska. We have projects that are built that are net positive in water and electricity that can feed back to grids, so that we're paving the way for future generations to be able to live sustainably, to act ethically and transparently, where, our higher ups were talking about doing business in certain countries and the morals of those politics didn't line up with the company. So we ended up pulling out. So just to touch on a couple of those. And these are the different avenues of work that Skanska does. Essentially, we have our Skanska building group that works on corporate commercial work, airports, hospitals, power projects, schools, data centers, and sports stadiums. We built MetLife Football Stadium where the New York Jets and Giants play. We're doing a lot of high-tech work, or work with high-tech clients up in Portland, Seattle area. So that's all Skanska building. Then Skanska Civil does bridges, roads, tunnels, transportation, wastewater, government, and heavy concrete. Our Skanska building group's headquartered in the Empire State Building. We also renovated the top few floors of the Empire State Building that you can see on the right-hand side there. But these are just a few of the other, cool projects that I'm sure you guys will see a lot of other projects throughout this week. But these are a few of ours out in New York. The Oculus, it's a transportation hub. LaGuardia Airport Terminal B, we've redeveloped. We've also done terminals at Portland International, San Francisco, Chicago. We're currently at LAX, not working on terminals, but some of the people mover projects that we have going on. Hospitals all throughout the United States. Georgia Tech, this building is very interesting. It achieved the Living Building Challenge, which is basically a step above our LEED certifications. If you ever have a chance to look into the Living Building Challenge, I highly suggest it. In my humble opinion, I think it's the future of sustainable building. Pretty interesting stuff. Universities, again, we do work at dorms, labs, stuff like that. This happens to be a sports arena that we had built for the University of Cincinnati. St. Petersburg Pier achieved LEED Platinum certification, which we were pretty proud of. And then lastly, we're doing some underground tunneling for Los Angeles. So we're doing the Purple Line extension, and we're also doing the regional connector, bringing together several underground metro lines. So that is, and then of course the I-5 North Coast Corridor in San Diego's something that our heavy civil group is working on as well. So I will kind of fast forward that. And yeah, if you guys are interested in any internships, basically if you're graduating this year or soon next year, might be looking at our new hires, our entry-level positions. But if you guys have any questions about employment with Skanska, I would be happy to talk with you and set up some time to speak. But besides that, thank you for giving us a few minutes to chat and letting me talk your ear off a little bit. But enjoy the week, and excited to get to know you all more.
Thank you, Matt. Before you depart, I have a question for you. Out of all the projects that you've seen at Skanska, what's your favorite?
It's the Candida building on campus at Georgia Tech University. It captures enough energy, like solar energy, to power the building. It's a nasty one, but the toilets, they collect the compost from the toilets as well, and they send it off to like companies to be reused for like fertilizer. It kind of speaks for itself. It sells itself, if you will. So that's my favorite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. Alrighty. So next up, I'm going to give Esmeralda the floor to welcome our speakers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. Okay, perfect. Let me just pull up my thing. All right. So we'll start with Jaclynn Sandoval. So Jaclynn is an inspector for the Port of Long Beach. She is a construction inspector at the port with over 10 years of experience. She has obtained all structural inspection licenses and is a certified welding inspector. Jaclynn currently works on the Pier G Avenue infrastructure project and also helps perform any welding inspections and other port projects. In her free time, you'll find her hanging out at the beach. So thank you so much, Jaclynn, for being here today. Next up, we have Nadirah Wright. Nadirah is a manager of projects at Jacobs. She started her experience as a general contractor for 10.5 years, working on various types of large healthcare and commercial projects. She transitioned to Jacobs in 2015, where she now manages multiple healthcare programs in Southern California. When she is not working, she loves spending time with her husband and 2 daughters. Thank you, Nadirah, for being here. Next up, we have Melissa Ward. She is a pre-construction manager from Turner Construction. She graduated from UCLA with a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. She's been working for Turner Construction for the past 15 years and is currently a pre-construction manager focusing on life science pharmaceutical projects in Southern California. In her spare time, she enjoys lettering, calligraphy, and yoga. Thank you so much, Melissa. And last but not least, we have Wendy Brefka. Wendy is a general foreman at Rosendin Electric. She completed 5 years of apprenticeship through the IBW and has been in the trade for 18 years. She grew up in Redondo Beach, California, working with her family, repairing video games for their arcade business. Through this, she found enjoyment in fixing equipment. Through a family friend, she started working in general construction after high school and decided to go into the electrical field. As a union electrician, she has worked on a number of large projects in the Southern California area. As a general foreman, she looks forward to the complexity of the trade and solving daily
Thursday night into Friday morning.
She is responsible
35 miles per hour
for completing projects on schedule and within budget. Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here. And now I'll pass it on to Melissa.
All right. Melissa Ward, by the way. I know there's 2 Melissas here, so maybe wait, that is you're passing off to me, right?
I'll take it real quick, Mel.
sorry, I should have said herself.
It's okay. I'm not. I'm not used to having too many Melissas around, so this is a wonderful addition. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of today. So each of our wonderful speakers is going to be talking a little bit about their role in a general construction project. So we're hoping to utilize the chat as they're giving their little presentation. If you have any questions, if you're confused about anything, please drop it in the chat. We want this to be kind of an organic flowing conversation with all of our topics today. So without further ado, now I will pass it over to Mel.
You can call me Mel. To avoid confusion, yes, absolutely, please call me Mel. I'm going to start sharing my screen, if that's okay. Let's see. And let me know if you guys can see it. Thumbs up if you can. All right, cool. Well, hello, good evening. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I will be starting off by kicking off an intro to pre-construction. What I first wanted to mention before we jump into the pre-construction aspect is I work for Turner Construction. We're a general contractor. So I wanted to start at least with a little definition or description of what a general contractor does, because you'll see on the panel tonight, we are all representing different parts of the construction industry. And as a general contractor, we don't do the design, and we don't actually, or at least Turner Construction in Southern California, we don't self-perform. So we don't actually put our tool belts on and do any of the work out in the field. We do, however, manage risk. That's probably the number one thing that you can see that we do in various forms. So we coordinate and manage various projects. At least Turner Construction, we do commercial construction, so it's not residential. We build the gamut of buildings, and overall we are managing projects, which I'll jump into a little bit in the discussion of pre-construction. But anything from schedule, safety, budget, the quality of a project. And as a general contractor, we are working right alongside with owners and developers, construction managers, trade partners, or our subcontractors, as well as, again, when I mentioned the design team, so architects and engineers. So as you can see on the screen, I'm the nerd at the computer. This is my desk, this is my desk that you'll see on the screen over in our Anaheim office. I am a pre-construction manager, and yeah, perfect. So as Esmeralda had explained in the introduction, I went to UCLA, and I actually, even though this is an ASCE event, I was not a civil engineer. I was actually a mechanical engineer, graduated 15 years ago. And ever since then, I've been working at Turner Construction. I did not intern at Turner, so I just went straight from being a senior in college to a first-time hire or entry-level engineer at the time. Here is a list of some of the different roles that I've played in construction. So I started out as an engineer on several different projects of different sizes. I was a cost engineer at one point, a cost analyst, which is basically someone who is making sure that the projects out there are making money, because at the end of the day, we are still a business. I've been a senior engineer, a project manager, and most recently a pre-construction manager. And I've been in the pre-construction department for coming up on 2 years now. You'll see in the picture, and I love this picture because I can't believe it was actually taken. This was my second project out of college. And as you can see, I was just a wee baby engineer. This was a project in Seal Beach and was my first pharmaceutical project that I kind of fell in love with the industry and the market segment. And a lot of the work that I do now is actually related to life sciences and pharmaceutical projects. For me, one of the reasons why I really enjoy working in this side of things is purely because in some way I feel like I am making a difference, right? Like pharmaceutical companies, startups out there, they are working on cures and medicines and ultimately saving lives. And this small part that I have in this world, I can say like that's part of my purpose as well. All right, on to the next one. So those are all like the photos that I had of myself. So no more photos. But jumping into pre-construction, I wanted to set this slide up almost like a party invitation and focus on the basics, right? What do we do in pre-construction? What we do is set up a job or set up various jobs for success. What success means might look different to different clients or different companies. And I'll jump to that at the end of this slide. But the next thing is who, right? Who's involved in pre-construction? I'm in pre-construction as a pre-com manager, but it's definitely not just me. I'm working at any given time with various estimators in our office. We try our best to identify the project team, the folks that are going to actually go out to the project once it starts in the field. I'm working every day with owners or so clients, different client representatives, as well as the design teams that are out there. I can probably go way over 15 minutes, but I'm not going to. So in general, design teams, a lot of our work is, let's say, design assist. So again, remember, I mentioned at the beginning, as a general contractor, we're not doing the actual design. We don't have our engineers who are actually professional engineers aren't the ones stamping anything. Same as architects, we don't actually stamp and sign anything, but we do work on design build projects, in which case we might help develop the design process along the way. Also working with other folks in other departments in our company. So we have safety folks, focusing on scheduling, procurement. By procurement, I mean purchasing and signing up the subcontractors or the trade partners that are actually doing the work. Again, I could go into this for a while, so again, we'll hold back unless you guys have more questions. The where of things, I typically work out of our main office. This may or may not be true in times of COVID for other general contractors out there, but I would say for myself, I'm able to work from home anywhere from 1 to 2 days a week, but mostly from our main office, which is in Anaheim. The when of pre-construction. So when do we get involved as pre-construction folks? Ideally, it's about 3 to 6 months before a project starts in the field. When you're thinking about what our role is, it's all about pre-planning. Again, remember, setting up a project for success. Ideally, you have the time to do that and get all of your ducks in a row before you start in the field. I would say that more often than not, you do not get 3 to 6 months. On a lot of projects, you might get as little as a few weeks to a month. But there are always some good ones out there that will give you even more, right? 6 to 12 months in advance. And when you're doing that, we're working again alongside with the designers and the architects so that we can really be there while the design is being developed. So we can help, which is the last part, the why, manage safety, budget, schedule, and quality. I would say those are the 4 main things of us focusing on in pre-construction. Safety, and everybody knows we always start with safety, right? We want to make sure that the guys that are doing, guys and gals, excuse me, that all of the folks that are out there in the field are coming home safe at the end of the day. That's extremely, like, the #1 thing. If there's an injury or God forbid a loss of life, like, it's not worth us doing it, right? So safety is absolutely #1. You'll hear often the trifecta of on budget, on schedule, and top quality or quality control. 3 things that are equally important, but maintaining the ability to focus on those 3 and really 4 things, that's how we get repeat clients. And as I mentioned before, as a general contractor, it's still a business, right? We're still about making money. And that's kind of how it all fits in. I have 2 more slides for you. The next is tips, tricks, and lessons learned. So I broke this out into 2 different things. One is if you start your career in pre-con, so say you graduate in May or June, and you go straight into construction, and the place where they end up putting you is in the pre-construction department. Here are my tips for you based on the things that I've learned, and yeah, we'll just jump right into it. Number 1, be a sponge, which kind of goes into number 2, which is ask questions. When you are coming in straight from college, you may or may not have had any experience in the field or in the industry prior due to internships. You want to learn as much as you can. I promise you, you will not, in construction, you will not have a boring day. You will learn something every day, or you have the ability to learn something every day. So please make sure that you are asking questions, because especially in pre-construction, ideally, you have the ability to foresee how a job is put together. But in the case that you start your career in pre-con, you might not have had that opportunity. So being able to ask questions, not only of your colleagues, but also of our trade partners that you might be speaking to, that kind of rolls into the next item that I wanted to mention, which is invest in relationships. A wise person, probably my first week 15 years ago, working at Turner Construction, said that Turner Construction is a general contractor in the business of people. Ultimately, it has to do with people and relationships and communication. And there's nothing super, super technical about that, right? Again, as a general contractor, we're not the ones that are self-performing and doing all of that work, which is why I recommend never burning bridges and investing in those relationships nice and early, because you never know who you're going to work with. You'd be surprised. It is a small world in the construction industry, especially in Southern California. The last item, and I threw this one in at the end, is just time management. I'm also trying to keep track of my own time management. I have 3 more minutes to talk. But in regards to, or just, you know, again, coming out of college, yeah, you might be able to juggle a whole bunch of things. Time management in construction is super important. There are deadlines, and it's one of the, and this is, I guess, true for any work industry, right? You don't have necessarily homework anymore or tests, but there's absolutely a deadline of some sort in this industry. And so you need to be able to juggle all the different things that you're working on at once, whether it be more than one project or working on more than one trade. Lots of things to go ahead and balance. The last part that I wanted to mention, and I'll wrap this up, is if you actually are entering in pre-construction a little bit later in your career, whether that is 10 years later, 2 years later, any and all, the first thing I wanted to mention is if this is you, right, bring the field knowledge that you learned being able to be out in a job into pre-construction. That knowledge and that field and constructability that you've learned is priceless. You'll have other folks asking you questions of how to build, and you'll bring in a different lens to a pre-construction department, let's say, much better just being able to know how things are put together and how things are built. And the last 2 things, which are very similar to what you saw on the first slide or the slide before, is A, maintain those relationships. Again, very small world in construction. And 2, still ask questions, because you're never going to know everything. And yeah, I think that that's probably just about everything that I wanted to say in the quick time that I had here with you guys. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I don't know if I don't know if somebody's going to tell me if there's questions. Let's see.
Yeah, we'll take care of that for you, Melissa. But I have a question.
Yeah.
To bring it full circle for our students that we have here today, within the past week or so, what does your tasks look like?
Well, the past week, so these days I'm working on 3 different projects, all projects that we've had. And one of them is a healthcare project. And I had to wrap up a GMP. Again, lots of acronyms. I can go on for well over 15 minutes. The GMP is a guaranteed max price. So a proposal where we're saying, hey, this is as much as we think it's going to take to build this design. That project it went in on Friday, and all week I was stressing about it. So working with my team of estimators, working with marketing and our superintendents, pulling everybody's knowledge together to put that package together by last Friday was what I was working on.
Great, thank you for that. If anyone else has questions, please drop them in the chat, and we'll be sure to do a question response session before or right after the panel wraps up. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it on to Nadirah to talk about construction management and being a construction manager.
Well, thank you, Melissa. So I'll take us, let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, and then before I go ahead and start, so thank you, Esmeralda, for that wonderful introduction. And Melissa, all the tricks that she actually put up, I would have to say that applies to what we do as well as construction manager. And just a little quick tidbit, I graduated at University of Wisconsin at Madison with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. So I did civil engineering, but I did 0 design after I graduated, went straight to general contractor, and then here I am with Jacobs. So before I start, let me give you guys a little bit of tidbit about what we do here at Jacobs. Okay. So Jacobs is about, we are a global company that performs services from technical construction and all over the world. We have 400 offices in 40 different countries, and we have approximately 57,000 talent forces doing everything you could think of in the world of design, construction, and management. Out of that 57,000, and we've been doing that since 1947. Now, out of that 57,000, 2,500 of us reside in the United States. Out of that 2,500 of us are Californians. And out of that 2,500, 700 of us manages doing project management and construction management. So we are a small chunk of what Jacobs Global is, but that makes us really good because we have a deep bench of resources that supports us from all over parts of the world. Now, I can spend lots of time talking about Jacobs because even I'm still trying to figure out what Jacobs do. But today I'm just going to talk about how we support our client from a construction management lens. So construction management, what do we do? So typically owners would hire us, and those owners could be companies, organizations, or government agency that includes healthcare, cities. They would come in and hire us to manage their construction projects. We could come in as early as development of ideas. We would take their ideas and take it from that idea all the way to completion when they're actually seeing their clients for the first time. We would help develop their master program schedule. And I'll talk more about the program schedule. We'll help them set up their budget so we know what we can build and successfully complete the project to a cost that everybody can afford. We then will assist them in procurement. So we would go out and help them bring architectural and engineering firm to start their design. We would help them with bringing contractors like Turners into the mix. We would hire special inspectors. So Jaclynn would actually be part of the procurement that we assist. We take all of that consultant that support a client to complete a project, coordinate with them. And when we get into construction, we'll go ahead and supervise what they do. And then we also provide support for activation. So most of us, when we're done with construction, we walk away, but Jacobs, as a construction manager, will come in and help facilitate clients so that they're ready to receive anybody to the space. So that's pretty much what Jacobs do. Again, it's a slew of everything and anything that we help perform for the client. But what I'm gonna do is just also narrow down what we do in 3 different categories on how we manage the work in terms of construction. So I'll take a step a little bit. So when I say about master schedule, what we do is when we start a construction project, there's gonna be many consultants that support the client to make sure that project is successful. We would work with our architect and engineering firm. We will work with general contractor and develop what we call the master schedule. So at any given time, our client will then take a look and say, how is my project doing? That's what we do. And then we will also coordinate that with the owner's driven activity. So for example, if owner needs to bring certain items in at a certain time, if they need to buy equipment at a certain time, we will actually develop that schedule with everybody. So let's just say we're like the master conductor of everything in the orchestra. So from a bigger picture, we then use the schedule to inform our owner, because remember, like by the time the owner hires us, they're not the subject matter experts in construction. They don't know from what end to what end. And that's why we're there to inform them how to coordinate with their facilities. So mind you, by the time the owner hires us, we're going into a space where there's an existing operations. I come from a healthcare background. So by the time we do construction, the hospital has to see patients. That means we have to maintain operations at all given times so that people can actually stay alive. I mean, there are works that we do that could impact their life safety. So we use our schedule to coordinate with facilities to make sure they know what's coming. If we need to do if we need to do a shutdown or a big shutdown, if we're gonna be even in their corridors, we would use our schedule to inform them and coordinate with them. We will also use our schedule to coordinate with authorities having jurisdiction. So if you're working with the state, we can actually help them plan their manpower so that they can support our project along the way. Then we won't track any delay. And the best part is that part of our job, when we use the schedule, we use that to inform our marketing folks and leadership folks at our owner. Because when you do a high profile projects, whether it's small or big, clients want to actually share that with the community. So we use our schedule to say, when are you ready to have a grand opening? When can you start receiving patients? And then that's what we use as our master schedule. And we don't do this alone. I think Melissa said it best. The world is very small. We perform our master schedule with partners all over from the industry that makes it a strong coordinated timeline. So that's what we do on our schedule. And then I'm going to go to the next one. So cost control during construction. So I think it was said early in the slide, like, we all want to make money. So but from a client perspective is that they hire us to manage the cost during the project. So before we start any project, we would develop a program budget. So we would estimate based on what we've been able to do in the past, what the construction cost is going to be, what the design cost is going to be, equipment, and then if we need to carry for contingencies or what the market is doing, which is what we call escalation. And the goal is to be able to inform our client how they can actually make decisions to make sure their project is at budget or under budget. And part of that is also managing contractors' change management. And I know there's going to be a section on that, so I won't be touching that. But at the end of the day, when owners hire construction manager, we really watch the budget like it's our own checkbook. So we would work with our partners, our general contractors or consultants, if there is going to be a need where we need to tap into the construction, we will work with them to understand why it's needed. Why should we recommend to the owner, and then pass that knowledge back to the owner so they can make sound decision. We would also be able to tell them like, hey, like, you know, contractor A needs 200,000. And then, yes, you can afford it because your contingency, say you have X amount of dollars. So that's the layer of cost control that we give to the client. Again, you know, even though they hire us, we don't make decision on them. It's not the construction manager's money. We're just the owner representation to help them make decision. So our job is to actually take our schedule and cost so that they can actually like make a decision as to not impact field progress. And again, we could spend more than 15 minutes talking about what we do, but here's a very high level of how we manage the construction. So then I'm gonna move on to the next one from a very high level. Now, when we get into the construction, obviously we look at everything from a safety perspective. So it's not just the safety from the guys in the field, it's the safety of everybody who's on campus, whether it's on the client site. And at the end of the day, we just want everybody to go home safely. So that's part of it. So we implement the contractor safety plan, but then we would coordinate that with the owner safety plan. Again, the owner have their own safety requirements. We need to share that to our contractor. And again, at the end of the day, when we start construction, everybody understands what's expected of each other when it comes to safety. During construction, we also, part of the, we are that conduit between the owner and the contractor, so we can minimize owner's operation. We would like coordinate with contractor, like all the way down to materials management. So I'm working at a hospital right now where we will have a loading dock, and then they receive shipment at 5 a.m. until 7 a.m. And if you're trying to deliver construction material during that period, they're not going to receive you because the goal is to provide care to the people in the hospital. So that level of coordination, we actually work with our client and the contractor. And then we also coordinate on any owner purchase equipment. So if the owner wants to buy a TV, we make sure that the appropriate outlets are provided. So many things going on at the same time, and that all happens during construction. And last but not least, we are the advocate for the hospital. Part of our onboarding to the hospital is that we understand, like I'm using my experience, for example, is that every client have their quality control and assurance expectation by anybody that they hire. So we are the advocate. So that's where the quality program comes in. And then sometimes, you know, because we've been there sometimes a year to 2 years longer before a contractor or consultant comes on board, you know, we would understand what they're looking for. And then it's our job, part of our job is to validate the design team and the contractor interpretation to make sure that they're on the same page what the hospital vision is, or health or any owner's vision. So that's kind of like I think, how did I do in time? Like less than 10 minutes of what I've been doing in the last 17 years. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions about construction management.
I have a question for you.
Of course.
So with the different roles that you've been in and the different projects that you've been on, can you talk about a challenging meeting that you've been in that you can recall, and kind of what the situation was and how you overcame it?
Well, I would say, since this is Women in Construction Week, I'm going to go with when one would look at me, and you might not be able to see it, but a long time ago, I was 110 pounds and I looked like I was an intern. And then sometimes people think I still look like an intern. I think a lot of people look at me and think that I am not as technically knowledgeable about what I do. And sometimes they come in with that pre-notion, this person does not know what I'm talking about. And then for those of you who are about to go out in the construction world, let me tell you, it's a different world 17 years ago than it is today. And I think it's just gonna get better for all of us as like a society. But my biggest challenge is I would sit in the meetings and then a contractor would challenge my knowledge and undermine me as the person who's running the project or running the meeting. But what I found that the best way to do it is to stay professional, never go back with that same behavior that the person will give to you. And then all you have to do is state facts. It's like, I think, I'm gonna use Melissa's best because it's just like the last presentation that I saw. You have to be knowledgeable. Like when you're about to start construction, you're gonna be given sets of documents. They're going to be called contracts. They're going to call drawings. They're going to be calling specification. Your best bet is to be knowledgeable in all those components, documents that's going to be given to you, because when you're knowledgeable, no matter what they say to you, you will be able to go back with statement and facts. And I think and just always be the better person than the behavior that's thrown back at you. Does that answer what your question, Melissa?
That perfectly answers the question and some great advice.
Okay.
All right.
Can I stop sharing?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nadirah. And so as with Mel, any questions you have, please drop them in the chat and we'll circle back to them afterwards. So without further ado, now I will hand it off to Wendy to talk about being a superintendent.
Hi, you guys. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I don't have any wonderful presentation points for you guys, so.
No worries.
So you just get me. I just want to tell you guys. So I did my 5-year apprenticeship, and you know, it was great. I did not go the college route. So for all you guys going through college, you know, good for you. You know, degrees are very important, but if you don't want to do college, there is another avenue for you guys to do your apprenticeship and you know, work in the construction field. I spent 2 years as a journeyman wireman, 8 years as a foreman, and I've had 3 years now as a general foreman. So just to get you guys excited, a couple of projects I've worked on Disney Tunes, King Kong, Harry Potter, Netflix, SoFi Stadium, and now at the LAX People Mover. So it's very exciting, you know, and the projects that, you know, we get to do and the things we get to build are very exciting. So just to tell you about Rosendin a little bit. Rosendin is a general contractor and also works as a subcontractor. So you can be an engineer, you can be a project manager. We have a lot of interns that come in and go through Rosendin as interns. So, you know, if you're wanting to or looking to intern somebody with a electrical background, you know, it's a really good company to work for, and they send a lot of people through to become engineers and into project management, safety, anything you guys want to do in that. We also have a very big pre-construction department ourselves. So if you guys want to get into the pre-construction, we have a whole BIM team, you know, and they work on the computer to build a entire 3D model of the jobs that we're doing, which is just, it's really cool. You know, the last 5-6 years, you know, it's been getting more and more attention to that. And, you know, it's really neat to be able to build a job in the computer, be able to, you know, look around and, you know, see what we're working with before it actually gets built, you know, so you get to put it on the computer, walk through it, look at your gear, all of your spacing and your conduit, and just build it in the computer before you get there. And that's really neat too. So what I do every day, we build the job. So we work with owners, we work with the general contractors, we put in conduit, we build our gear, pull wire, and energize projects. So it's really, really interesting to be able to actually be in the field. And, you know, generally my crew consists of all men, you know, a couple women here and there. So it's really exciting when we get the women going through the apprenticeship and, you know, making your way in this world of construction, you know, and I really like to see when they turn out as journeymen and also, you know, be promoted to foreman and general foreman. So it's really interesting to, you know, get to work with other women because when I first started, you know, we barely had any women in the field, and it's getting more and more. So it's really neat to get to work with them as well. So I mean, there's a lot of challenges that we go through every day when you're building. You get to, you know, install the gear, but then you run into a problem, you know, your clearances, you know, trying to make things work, and then being able to build that, fix things, you know, just work with your experience and with others' experience to build the team, you know, that you enjoy working with, and make things work. So there's a lot of coordination. You know, we go through our construction meetings to coordinate with the owners, to coordinate with other trades. And, you know, you always have things from different trades popping up, you know, where we have to field coordinate. So, you know, they're installing something, we're installing something, and it ends up in the same spot. So there's a lot of coordination to go through on that. Somebody asked how I chose the electrical trade. Melissa. I did a lot of electrical, and I did a lot of carpentry, and I love them both. But I do really like electrical as a trade more, because I just think there's just so much to learn, and there's so many different facets of electrical. You know, the code is just so complex that you never hit a wall where there's not something else to learn or something else to look at or some other challenge that's going to come up that you don't know the answer to, and you have to go find it out, you know, ask people, read through books, you know, all that to get there. So I really enjoy that. And then there's the safety aspect as well. You know, as we're doing electrical, it can be a very dangerous field. So, you know, you really have to pay attention to the safety aspect of it as well, and make sure that all of your, all the people under you are safe. All the practices for, you know, lockout, tag out, keeping things, you know, precise, exact, and then making sure everything is done per code, and all your steps are gone through your QC process. We have a very large QC field as well. So, you know, we have a lot of checklists to make sure that we go through and put everything in place to be safe and make sure everything works properly once we get through and we're done installing and we're ready to energize.
You got some questions in the chat.
I'm reading through.
I can read them out for you.
Okay,
Another one from Mel is, when you started in the field, did you know you wanted to climb up to general foreman from early on? Were there any certain steps you took to get there?
I wasn't shooting that high. I really wanted to be a foreman. And so when I started in the trade, I really wanted to get up to be a foreman. And so I did my 5-year apprenticeship. And then when I did my couple years as a journeyman, you know, I was really excited to move up as a journeyman and get into the foreman position. And, you know, I was very fortunate that one of the first couple jobs that I got on, they needed more help. So they bumped me up to a foreman. So yeah, I really did want to strive. And then once I got to foreman, then I was like, hey, you know, I want to go up more, you know? So, you know, I spent quite a few years as a foreman, you know, learning everything that it takes. And then the last couple of years I've been a general foreman, and, you know, there's just so much more to learn for it, you know? So, you know, it's just a challenge that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Our next question is there any particular PPE you need when working with electrical components?
Yes, there is a ton of PPE that you need when working for electrical. Our main PPE, I mean, generally we're not working on things that are live. So you just have the general PPE. We have our hard hats, gloves, safety vests, glasses, all that. When you get into energized, then you have your 20 cal suits, 40 cal suits, Everything's got to be flame resistant so that if something does happen, you don't catch on fire. Blast resistant so that when if something does happen, you don't get the full force of the blast. And then all your tools need to be insulated as well, so that if you're working with something that is live or can become live, then all your tools are insulated against that so that you don't hit live parts.
And I missed a question. This is kind of a question I also wanted to ask you too. So our speakers kind of touched on it about not getting some certain amount of respect from maybe males in the room, but you're not in the room, you're in the field. So, and I feel like that's a lot harder. And I've always respected female journeymen and foremen, and you don't see them that often. So Claudia's question is, as a general foreman, do you ever feel like you're not being taken as seriously for being a woman, whether you're by your team or whether by your team or other trades, the GC owners, basically anyone in the field, essentially?
Yeah, I have been very, very lucky myself. The people that I've worked with have just been absolutely great. I've had a really good time and really good, great group of people that I've worked with. And I've only had very few circumstances where you get at a meeting and somebody just like talks down to you, and maybe some of it was because I'm a woman and some of it is just because people are rude, and you can just run into those people, and construction can be, trying at times when people get frustrated or, there's things to work out or money becomes, one of those big things where, people are arguing about money because, obviously everybody wants to build things, with as little as possible to make money for their companies. So you can run into situations where, you're butting heads and going up against somebody. But, like somebody else stated, you just have to stick with the facts. I mean, you can't argue with somebody and, take it personal. We do our trades, we do our jobs. As long as you stick with the facts and you just tell them what it is, then that's all you can do. And as long as you know what you're talking about, if you don't know the answers, always just say, I will find out, because you don't want to lie. You don't want to try to say things that you don't understand. So you just tell them how it is and then get back to them with anything else that you don't know.
True. Yeah. We have some more questions. Do you have any goals of becoming a super? You went from foreman to general foreman. Do you want to take it up a notch?
I would love to take it up a notch, but I think I'd want to stay at this spot for probably a few more years to get the experience, because you want to really be comfortable in your job. You want to know what you're doing before you try to move up higher and then kind of get in above your head. And there's so many things to do. And I really do like being in the field, with the manpower, the men and women in our trades, and building. So I do want to stay in the field for a little while longer before I try to move up again.
Okay, and then our next question is, have you ever experienced an on-site accident? And I'm going to add a little bit to this. How did you handle it?
I have not personally been in an on-site accident.
That's good.
Yeah, I know several people that have been in accidents, and it can be very scary. I mean, the only thing I have experienced was unfortunately one of our guys had a heart attack on site, and that was pretty scary. We had to get the ambulance, had to do CPR, and that was kind of a trying incident. We did have an incident at the stadium where somebody passed away, and I wasn't personally involved with that, but when something does happen in the field and somebody gets hurt, it affects everybody, and especially when you hear another electrician getting hurt on a different site or your site somewhere else, it really does affect you, because you just have to realize that you have to step back, make sure you're going over safety procedures, make sure everybody else is with you, taking it seriously, and make sure everybody's going to be safe and go home.
Yeah, I was also on the stadium, and I want to double down on your point that it really does affect everyone that's around or even hears of it. So yeah, agreed. Do we have any more questions for Wendy?
I think that's all for now. So we'll hold all the other questions for the end of the panel. So Wendy, do you have anything else you'd like to add or any points you'd like to touch on?
A lot of stuff for the field as well is I don't generally come in at the very, before a project starts. I generally come in when the project is starting and when the work actually happens. Every once in a while we get lucky and we get to come in a little bit ahead of time, and that's when you do your scheduling, your man loading, figure out all the tools that you need for the job, all the material, all your planning. And it's really nice when we're able to come in early and do all that so that you're ready to go and ready to jump into your job. Sometimes you just have to jump in and improvise and get everything and make it happen. But when you get a little time, it's just nice to do those things, to be prepared, because the biggest thing on a construction site is being prepared with your tools, your material, your manpower, and your scheduling. Because when you're behind and when you're trying to rush to get ahead, it's really hard to build the job that way. So that's one thing that can be done, is just really trying to look ahead, things that are going to come up in your future, so that you can try to solve the problems ahead of time, instead of when they're kind of coming up on you, and then it makes it much more of a struggle to get things done that way. I really like the planning aspect of things, when you get to, see how things are done, build it for yourself, and then execute your plan. It makes it a lot smoother when you're able to do that for yourself.
All righty. I have a question for you. So can you talk a little bit about change orders and the general process that you have to go through, and kind of your pay applications that you have to submit in order for your team to get paid? So
a lot of that for me is done through our PMs. So I don't do as much of the paperwork and the coordination with the contractor themselves. But we have to go through the meetings, and we take the change orders, and then we tell them, say if something was damaged, we tell them what was damaged, pictures of the damage, and then hey, we need to get paid to repair this, and then we'll send that off to the PMs, and then they will write it up and send it off to the general contractor, and then the general contractor will approve or disapprove what we are asking, and then we can continue with our work.
Thank you. Okay, so one more question before moving on. Nadirah asked, can you tell us about how you manage time and material process that supports the change order?
So once we get our change order, then we can basically break down and say, this is the material that we're going to need to get this change order complete. This is the time we're going to need, so that our project managers can budget it and tell everybody what it's going to take. And then so then you have to manage your time, because you told them it was going to only take you this much time to get it done. So you want to order all your material, you want to get everything ready, and then you want to be prepared before you have somebody start working on something, because you always have to work within those the constraints of budget, money, and time. So then once you're ready and you're prepared for everything, then you can have your manpower go and fix everything that's needed. And then you write up your tickets. So you write up your tickets for all your material that you used, all the time that was spent, and what you charged it to, and then you can turn it in, and then that's how you get paid by the contractors.
Thank you for your wonderful insight. If we have any more questions for Wendy, please save them, and we'll circle back after all our panelists have spoken. So moving on, next up we have Jaclynn Sandoval. So welcome, Jaclynn. You now have the floor if you'd like to share your screen, show a couple slides.
Okay. Okay, can you guys see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaclynn Sandoval. I work for the Port of Long Beach. I've been in construction a little over 10 years. Just to give you a little example of what we do at work. So I'm on site every day. They say that we are the ears and eyes on the job site. They also say that we're the boots on the ground. So I am so lucky. I get to wear a hard hat and vest every single day, and I get to work with people on the job site. So I wanted to, this is me. This is a port. This is actually one of our biggest projects that we've had. This is Middle Harbor. So what I do is I deal with plans and specifications, and I go out to the job site and I check to ensure that the job site's being built properly. And obviously at the end of the day, when the job site's been done, everyone is safe. I just wanted to kind of show, this is pretty cool because I specialize in water construction. This is one of our largest terminals. This is our first automated terminal down at the port. And I got to build this terminal from the ground up. So I started with the soils work, pile driving, wick drains, and then all the concrete rebar and everything above it. So I wanted to touch a little bit on safety because that's one of the first topics that we go over on the job site every day. We do a little huddle in the mornings. We work around large equipment. So as you can see, this is a crane with a pile next to it. And I'm checking to make sure that pile was cured properly, the date it was made. Basically, there's no flaws in this pile before they start driving it. Filling out paperwork, daily reports, making sure that everything's within the specifications for this particular project. Another one really cool job I got to do was an underwater demolition project. So it's my job to track all the manpower and equipment for the day and just make sure that everything's going per the specifications and drawings. This is one of our projects that we just finished, a Kiewit job. I wanted to touch also a little bit on the teamwork that we get to, I get to enjoy every day. So I meet with a contractor every morning. We do a safety huddle. We start the project, and at the end of the day, we're all a team. This was really important that I put this slide in to show. It's nice to hear all the different steps of construction. So I've actually worked with a few of you guys before on your companies. But yeah, keep a good, solid working relationship because it is a small industry and you're going to probably most likely work with the same people again. So this was a big thing to touch on. And then I just added this little quote. So yeah, so I feel like that's about it.
All right, I have a couple questions for you, Jaclynn. So what is a structural inspector mean in terms of like, what are you actually inspecting? What elements are you taking a look at that you have to approve, and also on welding too?
Okay, so in construction, there's different types of, there's different steps in construction. So obviously we start with the, where you guys are, when you get into, sorry, I'm a little nervous. So I actually have all my licenses. So structural inspection is anything done structural. So soils work, you need to get compaction, right? So you have to come out and test the compaction. So you have to get certified to do that. Then you go to concrete. So you have rebar and concrete. You have to get certified to check the rebar before you place the concrete. So that's also another certification I have. Then when you place the concrete, that's another certification. So you have to go to school for every step of construction, every type. So soils, concrete, epoxy, welding, bolting, pile driving, there's all different types of inspection. So usually on a project, what they do on a large project is you'll see a different inspector for different phases of the project. So when the project starts, you'll see a soils inspector. And then when they start the rebar, you'll see an inspector out there checking all the rebar clearances. And then when they pour the concrete, you'll see a different inspector usually. So what I did was I went to school and continue to go to school to get all of my licenses so I could stay on the project from beginning to end. So basically what I can do is I can start in soils and work my way up until they're finishing, say, on a canopy, I can do the welding inspection on that. So I was basically put myself in a position on projects to where they couldn't replace me with a different inspector once the work ran out. And I was told on multiple projects as an apprentice, because I also went through apprenticeship and journeyed out and went that route instead of going to college, but I continued to go to school after I journeyed out just to put myself in a position where I couldn't be replaced by a male if they wanted a male on the project. So, and I was told multiple times there was no way I would be able to get all of these licenses and certifications for my age and being a female. So what I did is I just continued to go to school and prove them wrong. So now, you know, I'm one of the top 3 port inspectors that have, you know, almost every single license. So that's something I'm really proud of.
That is so super awesome. We have a couple questions that came in. Which trade was the apprenticeship through?
So I actually went through Local 12 Operating Engineers, and I started as a step 1 apprentice when I was 23 years old. And I worked my way up there, working night shifts, working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week with Kiewit as at a batch plant, doing batch plant inspection. And I just studied while I was at work and continued to go to school, and I never stopped. I still go to school.
Awesome. Another question that came in was, how did you get into inspection and go the inspection route?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. My sister actually is also a Port of Long Beach inspector. She got me into inspection, and I was working on the 405. It was a huge shutdown we did, and I was basically running out of gas. I didn't think I wanted to be an inspector anymore. I was around all men. I was one of maybe 200 on the crew, female. I was in my 20s, and I met another inspector. It was a male inspector, and he was ready to retire. And he was so impressed by me and being out on site. And like during a night shift, he came up to me and told me to never give up, that, you know, other girls are going to see me out on a job site and they're going to wonder what I was doing out there, and it's going to get them into the industry. And since, you know, he said that, I've been pushing women my entire career to try it and see if they like it, if it's something they'd be into.
Thank you for that. And since your sister is here, I'm going to give a shout out to Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie, for coming and supporting your sister and also representing women in the field. So do we have any other questions at the moment? All righty. So we are going to open up the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and pin all of our speakers to the top. And so now this is kind of a general session, if we will, to open it up. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, please feel free to do so. I know we have lots of students and we went through a lot of content. So if there's a particular piece of content that somebody just kind of went over real quick, if there's an acronym you didn't really understand, please feel free to go ahead and share. Usually have a few shy audience members.
I just want to say,
oh, go ahead.
Somebody said that they wanted to get more into the pre-construction process. So if you want to speak out, whoever you were, that's kind of the direction I really like too, because pre-construction is just so important to making the job flow smoothly and get off the ground and, stay on budget and everything else. So when you don't do a proper pre-construction and everybody's scrambling to attempt to make things work without the planning, it makes things so much harder. So, if you're looking at pre-construction, I think that's a great way to go. It's very, very important to the setup of the job.
Yeah, that was me. So I've actually interned in construction for contractors in the past. And right now I just started with Turner Construction, and our project's in a progressive GMP right now. Melissa talked about that, Melissa Ward. And I know nothing about pre-construction and estimating, and we're still trying to buy out our trades, and I'm learning a lot. But if I had that experience prior to this, I'd be able to hound them a little bit better, but I'm learning as I go. So yeah.
Just know that we I can probably speak for all of panelists that we're here for you guys, whether you're already in the industry or not. Like, we're happy to be on this panel and to share the experiences that we do. The one thing that I wanted to actually bring up, and slightly changing subjects, but again, going back to how small of a world it is, I asked Wendy on the side if she knew somebody named Royal Ward. And she's like, yeah, it's, you know, he was, what did you say? He was an apprentice before, and now he's a foreman. And it turns out he's my cousin.
And I've worked with him several times throughout the stadium and now at the LAX project.
Yeah. So you never know who you're going to work with.
So to all of our panelists, now that you've seen each of your presentations, I'm sure that there's different aspects where you were like, oh yes, I like that point, or just kind of reflecting on the presentation collectively. Are there any questions you'd like to ask each other about your roles?
There's so many questions, and I think like it's to Jaclynn. I'm assuming going to school, getting all of that certifications, it's probably took you a long time, but it would be nice to know how long did it take you, the investment of time to get all the certifications to be like, you know, irreplaceable if you think about it.
So I would say, so I got my last, which was my largest, like my biggest certification, which was my certified welding inspector. That was huge. That's a 30% passing rate. So that one alone, I went to school for a year. It was every Saturday I was working full time, and I studied for a minimum of 2 hours a night. So that was a full year of dedication of not going out on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday. But for everything else, I would say it took me about 6 years to 7 years. But it was worth it. Every minute of it.
Well,
you have like ultimate bragging rights after that.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because I have to work with welders. And so when they see me walking up to a job site, they think that I'm safety. They automatically assume I'm a safety man.
Yes.
And so they make little comments. And then once we get going, it's, hey, I'm your welding inspector. And it's like a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's funny that safety is their go-to. I've been safety many times, and I run the healthcare program. So
interesting story to tie on to that, though. I remember a few years ago, I was a project manager of a project, and I was going out into the field a decent amount, and one of the iron workers actually said to me at one point, after seeing him, you know, a handful of times, he was like, "Oh, I thought you were safety." And I personally, though, I was so honored to like be out in the field enough, because that's one of the things, maybe not obviously in pre-construction, but even as a project manager, I'll be honest, oftentimes I get stuck behind a computer at my desk for the vast majority of the time. So there's, you know, I wish I could go out into the field more. And so to be categorized as a safety person being out in the field, like, I was really happy with that statement personally.
It's interesting too, because I saw someone in the chat asked about like women's safety gear and boots. So last year was the first year Red Wing, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Red Wing came out with a women's female boot. So, you know, throughout my career, I've been wearing men's boots. So it was really a big deal to be able to go in and get your women's size with, you know, that fits you correct without having to wear 3 pairs of socks every day to work to get, you know, a proper fit of boot. So that's really cool.
My Red Wing boots, when I ordered them, I had to order, I have 2 pairs of socks when I ordered them. And then when I bought them, they told the last time they bought this small size, which is men, was 12 years ago. So thank you.
Yes, and I just want to shout out one of our sponsors, which is Radians. They will be giving a PPE presentation on all, like, their female line, if you will, and they're going to be giving us a discount code to their line, and we're also raffling off their vests. But I just want to share a quick story. So I just started working at the port with Jaclynn and Stephanie, and I just barely missed Claudia. She finished up her internship. But right when I came in, obviously we were working remotely, but an email had went out about, hey, we're putting in a new order of safety vests. Please let me know your size so we can, get everyone's new vest with our new logo. And so I had kind of messaged a friend in the design division. I said, hey, for reference, what is your size of your vest? Just so I know what to order. And she was like, to be completely honest, I'm not the best person to ask because mine is a men's medium and I'm swimming in it. So I don't really know what size you should order. And I was like, well, this is 2021. I feel like we should have like female vests offered as well. So I circled back with my supervisor and I said, hey, Francisco, is it possible that we can get female vests too? I see that for the vest that we're going to be ordering, they have a female option. Is that okay? And he was like, oh yeah, I'm surprised that we don't already offer this. And so it actually went through the different channels and kind of got approved. It didn't get blasted out to the entire department. So I'm over here messaging Stephanie and Jaclynn for the first time. I've never met them, like, hey, make sure you ask for a women's vest. And so I think that like little things like that we can do to kind of champion our causes. It never hurts to ask, always go in expecting them to say no, but here now we're getting some new gear that will properly fit us in the field, which is super great. So if you haven't asked your companies already, I encourage you to do so. So to our panelists, I'm curious if any of you are first generation construction or if you have families that were also in construction. So I'll let you take it away.
So if I can start, it's kind of funny because I am first generation in construction and in the union. My sister joined very shortly after I did, and we both went through the electrical apprenticeship, and she is a superintendent with the solar division at Rosendin. And so it's really cool. But what's funny is afterwards, after I joined, I found out that my great-grandfather was an iron worker. I have cousins that are electricians. I have uncles that are electricians. And I have other cousins that are carpenters. So people within my family that I'm not really close to, but it was kind of funny to see that I have so much more in my family that's kind of on the same track that I didn't even know about.
I would say I'm the first generation of in construction. My parents are both bankers, and I started out interested in construction, went to school in civil engineering, and realized that I rather manage construction projects. So because I didn't have construction background, my learning curve on my first day of school was pretty steep compared to other people who dad owned a construction company, went to construction management program. So I think the whole point was like, I was just soaking everything in. Like I didn't even know what an RFI is or what submittal was on my first day. And it just like a dictionary of acronyms thrown at you on your first day. So yeah, it was fun. And now I'm pretty blessed of where I am today. And I think it's the whole point of just soaking it in on the first few years of your project.
For me, yep, first generation construction, hopefully first of many. Yeah, I went to school as a mechanical engineer, and I chose mechanical because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I figured that mechanical was going to be the most broad and could lead to the most in terms of different quantities of industries. Because I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be an engineer of some sort. And then, that's its own story. But I ended up in construction, and I have never looked back 15 years later.
I actually have construction on both sides of my family. So my grandpa on both sides worked in construction. My dad did roofing, and now almost my entire family works down at the port. So we're all, they're either, on the owner side or on the longshoreman side. So it's really cool. We all get to work within 15 minutes of each other.
That's
They
great.
should carpool.
So I have just one last question to wrap up our panel. So for each of you, do you remember the first project that you ever worked on? And now that you are where you are in your career, do you have a favorite project that you have ever worked on?
I can go first because this is a fun one. So one of my first jobs was actually with Skanska. I worked on the Purple Line as a step 1 apprentice, and I knocked my wheelbarrow over on the first day that I was trying to take concrete samples, and I couldn't pick it up. That was a long time ago. So, and then my favorite project was I worked on the 405 with Kiewit, and we got to do all the bridges. So I got to actually go under the Mulholland Bridge when it was shut down. So that was one of the coolest things I've done.
I'll go next. So when I first got hired on by my general contractor, they brought me all the way to Santa Barbara from Wisconsin. And I was at the Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital expansion. And I was helping out. I was doing the parking garage. And then after we poured out all the decks, they pulled out my superintendent and left me, project engineer, 6 months into the job, with a carpenter foreman. I said, you guys go finish up the project. So I learned what scheduling and not stacking your manpower means. Don't put your welder on the roof with your waterproofing at underground and caught fire. So that was like my lesson 101 about finally getting it in your college, when I say stacking manpower, you finally realize the repercussion of that. So that was my 6 months into the construction project, but that taught me so much. When they throw in all that responsibility, I just soak it up and just did it. So that helped me a lot in my role today. But my favorite project is when I went to work for Chalk Children's Bill Holmes Tower. I spent 3 years as a general contractor over there. And it's crazy because I've done a lot of healthcare projects, but it is different when you're doing it for the children. And then when Jacobs came to me and said, do you want to come and work for us? And then I came back, and now I'm still working at Chalk Children as one of my clients. And it's a project that's near and dear to me. So that's kind of like where I'm at today.
Wendy, did you want to go?
Sure. My first project was really neat. It was at Fox Studios, and we were, the studios for a long time ran on generators. So our project was to build a substation from DWP, get power from DWP, and power the studio lots. So we got to set the gear, we got to run all the conduit, and we got to pull the wire, and then we got to energize all of these different studios. So that was a really neat project to get to work as my first one. My favorite project was Harry Potter, because how could it not be? It was just a super neat project, with the underground, and then all the integration for, the effects and everything else. I mean, there was so much going on with that project that was just so neat, and different things to learn. And so that was my favorite for sure.
Awesome. My first project was, I was an engineer for the Terranea Resort project, or Terranea Resort, if you guys are familiar. It's in Rancho Palos Verdes. That was an amazing project. So much happened. It was 102 acres, and I was on the site team. So I didn't work on the hotel, and I didn't work on the ancillary buildings. I did everything else in between. And I just remember learning so much and really learning to love the people I worked with. I keep going back and forth in my head for a favorite project, but I think what I would say is the the first project that I was a PM on, which was back in 2018 for Kite Pharma. It was yet another pharmaceutical project, and it was a fast one. It took a lot of pre-planning, right, in order for it to be successful. We worked with Rosendin on that job, but there was so much to learn, and that was also the first time where I felt a little bit more confident in my own management skills, because, you know, and again, this is its own info session. I can talk so much about how there's a big difference between diving into the details of building and understanding that technically versus the people side and managing people. And it's so different, and it takes a very different set of skills. So that would be my favorite job.
All right. Any last minute pieces of advice from our panelists?
I would say never give up. Just keep going. Don't let any man tell you you can't do their job, because you can, and you're going to do it probably, you know, I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but a little better.
Mine would be to find something you're passionate about. You've heard from, again, 4 different perspectives in the construction industry tonight, and we all come from different backgrounds. So find something that you're passionate about and just follow that.
Mine would be, among everything that the first 2 ladies actually said, they're really great advice, is that I would say practice on your communication skills. I mean, there's so many stuff, and then like we could be so good about what we do, and then if you can't translate that in how you communicate visually and in conversation, you lose your audience and you're not presenting your value. And this applies to everybody who's on this call. I mean, you know, one of the struggles that we have is that, you know, I have to communicate all the way to the field guys, to the foreman, and then I talk to the senior leaderships of organization, the C-suite. So being able to understand how to communicate is such a great skill, and not everybody has them. So practice that right now and keep going as you keep going, because as you go on, because I'm still doing it. And so that would be my advice.
And Wendy?
I would say for me, just realize that everybody's important to the building of something. You know, everybody from our apprentices to our foremen, to the PMs, to our lovely inspectors, to everybody that puts their hands into a project. You know, everybody's important to getting things done and making sure it's done right. And then don't be afraid of change. There are so many different jobs within construction that you can do. If you find out, you know, you did something, you got a job somewhere and you don't like it, there are so many other options. You know, just talk to somebody, you know, reach out, and somebody's going to give you a hand and, you know, tell you where else you can go, or, you know, maybe you'll find something that's more exciting to you. There's just a world of options out there for you.
All righty. So that kind of wraps up our Q&A session. So thank you to our lovely panelists this evening.